Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk 48. And this week we're talking about diabetes. Now, I'm not on to terrify you all, but as we've said before, knowledge is power. And if we know the things that can affect us adversely, then we can do something about it. So, diabetes itself, okay, what is it? Essentially, it's too much glucose in your blood. Now, glucose comes from the food that we eat. So anything that we eat, in particular carbohydrates, when we eat those, that's then turned to glucose, and that then goes into your blood cells and can be used for energy. Now, how does it get into our blood cells? What happens is when you eat something, the body sends a message to the brain, which says, okay, pancreas, can you produce some insulin, please? And insulin is almost like the key that unlocks those cells so they now open, they can take in that glucose, that's turned into energy, and obviously we use that energy just to live and also to do or exercise and whatever else that we happen to be doing in any given day. There are different types of diabetes. So the type 1 diabetes, now this is often detected or diagnosed very early in someone's life. So it tends to be seen in children and young adults. And this is because the pancreas is not working properly. And it means that you don't have insulin, and therefore very often people are put on insulin injections, things like that, or it could be medication via tablets, which helps to produce insulin and keep the body on an even keel. Now, the type 2 diabetes, and this is where we come into the majority of the population, 90% of people who are diabetic are actually suffering from type 2 diabetes. Now, type 1 is nothing to do with your lifestyle or your diet. You can do nothing to prevent it. Type 2, however, this can be caused because people are overweight or they're living a poor lifestyle. And what happens is your body becomes unable to produce enough insulin. The pancreas starts to malfunction. It's not working properly. You're not able to produce enough. And therefore what happens is when there is too much glucose in the system, it can't get into the cells. So obviously you're going to feel tired because you've got no energy, etc. But that then starts to accumulate in the blood. And that's where we can have big problems. And these problems really can be very, very serious. So what can diabetes do? First of all, it can cause a furring up of arteries. So all of this glucose in the blood is turned to fat, which tends to fur everything up. If an artery going to the heart is blocked or even partially blocked, that can result in a heart attack. If you have an artery that's blocked up that's going to the brain, you could have a stroke. So those are probably the two most serious effects. What else can be affected in our bodies? Our kidneys. So if we have too much glucose in the blood, the kidneys can't work effectively. What do kidneys do? They get rid of all the waste from our body. If the waste is still retained in our body, the kidneys can't function properly, what's going to happen is we can become very ill indeed, because ultimately we can become poisoned, if you like. You've then got nerve damage, and you find people who begin to suffer with type 2 diabetes will complain of a numbness or a tingling in their fingers. Your muscles can they can twitch. Your muscles can become quite painful, or you can actually lose strength in your muscles. Or it could be eye problems. It could be things like blurred vision, that kind of thing, needs to be checked very much so. You've then got things like gum disease, and gum disease, you've got things like bleeding gums, gingivitis, things like that. So if you notice that you have any of those symptoms, then it really is worth going to your doctor. If you are very thirsty, many people find they are drinking all the time. It's almost like they can't get enough to drink. And I'm talking water here, not alcohol. Or it could be that you're going to the loo all the time, particularly in the night. Are you getting up once or twice in the night to go to the toilet? That might be worth looking at. It could be that you feel much more tired than usual. And that makes sense. If the glucose isn't getting into the cells and therefore can be used as energy, you haven't got enough energy. So you're going to feel very, very, very tired. Are you losing weight without trying? Now, I know those of you who are looking at this will be thinking, wouldn't mind a bit of that. But if that goes on over a period of time, so you're not trying to lose weight, you're not dieting, you're not cutting down, but you are losing anyway, then you need to have that checked. And again, things like blurred vision with your eyes we need to have checked. And also things like any wounds or cuts. If they're not healing as quickly as usual, then we have to do something about it. So they're the symptoms. things to look out for, and they're the problems that might occur with type 2 diabetes. Now, the good thing about type 2 diabetes is it can be managed with medication and with a change in lifestyle and eating habits, that kind of thing. And I think I've quoted, I'm very proud of him. My brother was diagnosed 7 years ago, and he really took stock. He changed his diet quite radically, and he started taking a lot more exercise. And he got to the point where it's not cured. It is never cured, but it is now controlled, and it is in what they call remission. So he doesn't have to take any medication. He is classed as being in remission, but has to be checked at regular intervals just in case it starts up again. So don't panic if you get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. It could be that you can just do something fairly simple to adjust your lifestyle and your eating habits, and you can get it all under control. So what kind of things can we do? The first thing is stay a healthy weight. We need a good, healthy diet, and that's eating. We've talked about processed foods and things like that. So it's a healthy diet, regular meals. Now, being regular is very important. So no starving yourself, no leaving meals all day and then having a real binge in the evening. So try and eat regularly where you can. Whole foods, as we've talked about before, and also eating things like 5 portions of fruit and veg a day. Now, obviously with fruit, we have to watch this, and it's something that in recent years we've realised that eating a lot of fruit can actually give you a lot of sugar in your system. It's natural sugar, but it is still sugar. So it may be worth having more veg than you have fruit. So perhaps look at that. Limit saturated fat, limit salt, and limit sugar. Now, we've talked about all of those, so I won't go into any detail, but if you can limit those, it doesn't mean you have to cut them out of your diet completely, but if you start to limit them and cut them down, you hopefully will see an improvement. Eat 2 portions of fish per week, and if you can, make sure that at least one of those is oily fish, things like salmon, mackerel, that kind of thing. That is really necessary for a good, healthy diet. What about the activity that you do? We obviously need to exercise, and what's suggested is 2.5 hours per week. That's not a lot. You could do it in 5 half-hour sessions if that suits you better, or perhaps you're someone who feels much happier doing 10-minute sessions here, there and everywhere. So that's absolutely fine. Doesn't matter which you choose, so long as you're active, you're getting some exercise, that will really help the health of your body. If you are a smoker, stop smoking. Smoking is one of those things that we know is bad for us. I know a lot of people find it very difficult. If you are a smoker, it's very difficult to give up, and I don't underestimate the difficulty of that. However, if you are diabetic and you smoke, you are doubling your chances of getting all those awful diseases and things that I mentioned earlier, in particular heart attack, stroke, those kind of things. So if you can cut out smoking, then please do so. What about strengthening exercises? Now, many people think, what does that involve? It literally is just building muscles. I'm not talking about going to the gym and building up so you look like Mrs. Universe. Even carrying your shopping. Weights will really help. So it could be as you're doing your workout, have you got some hand weights or the ones that you can strap onto your wrist or your ankles? But literally anything. Resistance is good. You might have resistance bands at home, so you can use those. And obviously you're working against gravity. That's resistance. That will help to tone and work those muscles. And again, you'll be much fitter, healthier, much more active. Limit alcohol. I know, all the fun things. Again, it's not saying don't have alcohol, but try to limit. It will not help. Alcohol is full of sugar. It's also full of calories and should impact on your weight. If you are diagnosed, and it could be you get a diagnosis that says that you are pre-diabetes. Now, that means you haven't actually got it, but you are very, very likely, you're highly likely to develop it if you're not careful and if you keep going on the way you have been doing. If you are diagnosed as having it, you'll be given medication of some sort. It is imperative that you take that medication. Obviously, that is constantly reviewed. So as you change your diet, change your exercise, your medical advisors will then look at what you're doing. They will see how you're doing, and they do take measurements all the time, and they will be able to tell you whether you're improving things at all. And the last one is cholesterol. Now, it's found that most people who suffer from diabetes have high cholesterol. And that's something we should all, every now and again, have checked. But particularly if you feel you're pre-diabetic or you're suffering from diabetes too, you need to look at that and also find ways of controlling it. So it's not a matter of panicking and thinking, oh, that's great. So half the population or more are going to get diabetes. It is a problem. And because of the lockdowns that we've had, people are less active. And again, because of lockdowns, people are eating more of the wrong things. It's all about comfort eating. It's, well, I'm having a rotten time because I can't see my children, my friends, my family. And so we're tending to comfort ourselves by eating the wrong foods and too many of them. We're probably putting on weight and not realizing the damage that we're possibly doing to our bodies. But if we just address that, start eating healthily, and get good exercise, you can make a huge difference. So, on that positive note, I shall leave you. Hope you've all had a wonderful Mother's Day. Take care now. Bye bye.